Winter storm watches and winter storm warnings up for areas in the deep south. And that includes me, because the European gives me 6 inches. I'll settle for three just to have snow on the ground. It'll be really nice here in North Georgia. We'll fill you in on all the details. The relentless wind and as I've been told, brutal conditions with these strong winds and cold temperatures in parts of the Northeast, particularly near the coast. We'll let you know how much longer you'll have to put up with that, and will it ever snow? Well, we'll find out on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We keep it virtually commercial free by shopping on Amazon. If you use our referral link that's pinned to the top of the chat board or on the description to this podcast, you do your shopping. Amazon throws us back a little coin, and it's an easy way to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast because it doesn't cost you one extra dime. So use our referral link when you shop on Amazon. Joe, I have to tell you the weather coverage here. I made it a point to switch around tonight to the various channels, and and I did it at random times, like every 9, 10 minutes or so, just sort of switching around. Every time I switched, I caught a weathercast of one form or another. The newscasts here go from like 4 o'clock to 7:30. In some cases, they run the network news at 6:30 on NBC, the other station, and CBS. The ABC stations run at 7. So it's like nonstop news here. And it's been nothing but, weather coverage. How they make the brine for the roads and what they're going to do if there's power outages and on it goes. And you're not talking about a foot plus here, but it doesn't snow very often here in the deep south, and everybody is kind of excited about it. Hold on, Joe. Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. Uh, well, hold on a second. We're having some audio issues. Ah, now I know why. Um, Try again. Now, stop kidding around. I can see your lips are moving and I'm getting levels. Can you try again?
Yes, here I am.
Okay, now we can hear
Can you
you.
hear me? There you are. I was just saying before we had the technical distress here that here in the New York area, all three networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, were covering, along with the regular cable news networks, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, the coverage of President Biden out in California concerning the terrible, terrible fires that have been occurring in Southern California. And it's funny, Joe, they have their problems with the wind. And up here in the Northeast, we're having our problems with the wind. Ours is a cold, blustery wind. And the folks down in California are having the problem with the Santa Ana wind, which helped to tip off the fire activity that is going on there for the past couple of days. So, and you commenting about your impending big weather with the potential for not a whole heck of a lot of snow by the standards of what we see up here, but still 2 to 5, 3 to 6 inches is enough to cause a lot of problems, I would presume, for parts of the southeastern states. And buckle up, Joe. It looks like you may pick up in one sitting more snow than we've had here in the New York metropolitan area in
Right, so
recent days.
more snow on the ground certainly than you've had at all. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm. This is. I've had snow here. It's been minimal for the most part, but this is the first one where it's actually going to be at least a few inches, or at least I'm hoping it's at least a few inches. And I'm we're going to be here. We're going to have a show tomorrow night, folks. And I have cameras outside, so keep your fingers crossed that I don't muff that up. And I can show you what it's like when it snows in North Georgia. Hopefully, there's enough light outside to catch it. And then you can just drool with envy because you'll see it probably snowing harder than it has all winter long up in parts of the Northeast. The California wildfire, yeah, the wildfires in Southern California. I mean, it's just amazing. I was watching some of the live coverage. It's down right on the coast. I mean, fires been practically on the beaches. And one of the reporters that was out there was noting that normally fires, it's very. If you've never been to coastal Southern California, I mean, you're basically got a beach on the side of a mountain. The fires normally, when they're inland, they tend to kind of move up the mountain, the reporter said. And in this instance, they were actually charging, as she used the word charging, down the mountain. But I mean, it's just awful, just absolutely awful.
And you know, another thing is that I saw tonight on the CBS Evening News somebody commenting, well, this is all due to global warming and climate change. And I was scratching my head and saying to myself, well, gee, wasn't it just 2 years ago when California was getting hit over and over and over and over and over again by the so-called atmospheric rivers? And
Right.
California looked like was going to literally float away with all that rainfall. And again, I see experts saying, well, this is all due to global warming and climate change. And I'm saying to myself, can you really have it both ways?
Yes,
Is
well,
it
of course,
possible that
because you're the disingenuous media, you can just pretty much, cover it however way you want it.
yeah, it's, now I looked at the maps. I'm saying to myself, so what is causing this? And what I saw was on the upper level, the 500 millibar maps that closed upper low over the southwestern states, but the gradient, I don't even think with height lines, can you really call it? I guess you can call it a gradient. They
Yeah.
were unusually tight. They were unusually tight with this particular. I mean, you and I have seen over the years these cutoff lows over the southwest. They come around every 2, 3 times a winter. This one was especially intense and causing, again, a very strong wind. We've been hearing about winds upwards to 70, 80, 90 miles per hour, in some cases even more, which is set the stage. And the other thing was, as of I know, at least as of a couple of weeks ago, most of California was not in a drought situation. I mean, they were talking about how, well, we haven't had any significant rain since May. And yet, I don't recall seeing any sign of severe drought or extreme drought in California, which I would then admit to helping to set the stage for.
Well, my understanding is that all that rain caused, because of all that rain, they now have all this extra vegetation that blossomed out of that rain. So now all of that vegetation is burning. You know,
Well,
I'm not there. I don't know. I know that many areas in Southern California haven't had more than a quarter of an inch of rain since May, and it's hardly rained there at all this winter in the southern half of the state. There's been rain in the northern part, but not in the south. But like I said, I'm not there. I'm not an expert on California weather. I don't.
I'm
It's in a whole world of its own over there. What happens?
neither am I. And but again, as I've said over and over, 2 years ago when people were saying, "Stop it! Stop all this rain! We've had too much rain. It's been horrible. It's been terrible. Stop! Will it ever stop?" And everything else. And people like even going out and praying, please, these atmospheric rivers causing all this. Well, guess what? Your prayers were answered, but unfortunately, now it's on the other side, the other extreme. You have such a lack of any significant rainfall. And Joe, I was telling Renata tonight, if there's one place you don't want to live, it's California, because California, there's no such thing as normal there. It's
No.
either too wet, and I'm watching on the evening news people in Malibu complaining about the mudslides and the heavy rain, or it's too dry and you get wildfires such as what we're seeing tonight. And I'm not even going to talk about the earthquake situation that periodically shows up there as well. So why, I don't understand why anybody would want to live in that part of the country with all of this happening. I mean, let's see, if we don't have exactly no problems here in the Northeast or here in the New York metropolitan area. We have our fair share of weather problems too, but I mean, it's nothing compared to what they go through almost every year in one way, shape, or form in California, going from one extreme to the other extreme. It's crazy.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, we've got some winter weather across the South, and we're going to get into that right now. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. Welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays are usually off days, but we're going to be here Friday because I want everybody to celebrate with me. The snow, fingers crossed, for the snow, and then we'll be back on Sunday. So we'll be here Thursday, we'll be here Friday, and I think Rich Rodmansky is going to be with us tomorrow night. So that should be a lot of fun. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, notifications turned on, please, so you don't miss us. You like the show, hit the like button. Joe's standing by with his, the bell from Notre Dame to ring it if you get to 100 likes. And by the way, there's a couple of people that mentioned this to me. YouTube notifications are very unreliable. YouTube only sends out, as from what I understand, with all the YouTube channels that they have and all the people doing live streams, that their systems can't really handle sending out notifications to every single subscriber across their universe. I mean, you're talking about billions and billions of notifications probably going out all at the same time. So they send them out. I don't know what algorithms they use to send them, but that's what they do. So what I've been doing is posting the link, which actually I forgot to do. I'm going to do that right now. Post the link in the community section of this YouTube channel so that there's a chance that if you don't get the notification from the show, you will get the notification from the post that is on in the community section. Also, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and if you're on my subscription site, uh, and if you're on Joe Rayo's Facebook page, you'll get a post every day, usually at least 2 or 3 hours before the show, that there is going to be a show with a link to it. So we stick to the schedule for most of the time. So we rarely, we say it's 7:35. It's usually 7:35. Sometimes we do change it, but you can pretty much bet that if it's Sunday through Thursday, if you don't get a notification, there more than likely is the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So let's get to the weather part of all of this. And we've got a whole slew of advisories and warnings. I'm waiting to see what Atlanta does with regards to upgrading the winter storm. We're putting winter storm warnings up. I'm going to be curious to see how they do this. But we've got winter weather advisories. I'm sorry, Joe, you're about to say something?
I don't mean to interrupt, but this must have been, I think it was in 2017. Renata and I were at the NWA weather conference. It was in Anaheim, California, and they spent a good deal of time talking about what happened to Atlanta the previous winter, I think 2016 or early 2017, and they had a major winter storm which nobody in the Atlanta area was prepared for. And one of the problems was that the National Weather Service had issued initially a winter storm watch for the Atlanta area, and then they followed up with that watch with a winter weather advisory. And it appears, at least this was the assessment from the various officials who spoke at the conference, it appears that people thought that a winter weather advisory was a lower form of warning, or a lower type of warning to the general public, as opposed to a watch. Now, a watch simply says that, obviously conditions are ripe for the possibility of some sort of weather, be it severe weather or in this case winter weather. When the advisory came out, everybody said, "Oh, okay, so it's not going to be a big deal." They had a watch up, but now the advisory is out, and the advisory doesn't see. In their minds, the advisory meant that it wasn't going to be all. It wasn't going to amount to a hill of beans. When in fact, it did amount to a hill of beans. More than that, they were warning in the advisory about slippery roads and ice or snow accumulate. But nobody out there paid attention. Everybody went out thinking it would just be kind of a semi-regular commute. And as it turned out, there's some people who took 6, 8, 10 hours to get back home because the
Right.
roads were in terrible
Well,
shape and snow and ice and everything. So I'm wondering how they're going to take this upcoming weather event into play, remembering back again what happened like 7, 8 years ago.
yeah, 2017, and then there was the great Snowmageddon in 2014 in Atlanta, where the highways were shut down for an inch of snow. And since then, because they didn't have a, they didn't have any equipment, they didn't have brining. They brine the roads now. They're brining tonight in the Atlanta metro area, and in various places in North Georgia. I thought even in my area this morning, I noticed I drove on one of the roads. It looked like they had put some brine down on it. I'm not sure. I wasn't 100% sure, but it kind of looked like it. So it's different now. They do have winter weather removal equipment that and are able to handle something. Maybe we'll see how they handle this. But they've got everybody in place, which they didn't have back in. They certainly didn't have in 2014, and they probably only had it in a limited way in 2017. Now we've got winter weather advisories, which, as Joe pointed out, means that a winter weather advisory means we have winter weather and we're advising you of it, and that is in southern New Mexico, western Texas. Although there's an odd, when you look at the way they got the advisories, there's kind of a hole there in southwest Texas. I'm not sure why. Then we go to Oklahoma, into southeast Kansas, across central, cut Missouri in half, southern Illinois. We have winter storm warnings up for northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma, northwest Louisiana, all of the state of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, southeast Missouri, southwest Kentucky, winter storm watches for northern Alabama, and winter storm watches also for northern Georgia. The new winter storm watches that were added this evening, western South Carolina and southwestern North Carolina. The rest of Tennessee, not the west is in a warning. The rest of Tennessee, central and east, are under a watch. In Kentucky, we have watches, nothing in the north, but we've got winter weather advisories in the southeast, and then the rest of the southern half of Kentucky under a winter storm watch. And the snowfall forecast. Now, this is the digital forecast from the Weather Service, and there's a lot of variations in some of in the models with regards to snow amounts. And I got to tell you, Joe, I'm not. I've been learning about the climate here, and this is going to be a real test for me because I'm sitting here in North Georgia. For one thing, I did not get out of the 20s today, and I'm in the North Georgia mountains, right near the North Carolina state line. Most of the guidance today we're taking highs up here into the middle 30s. I mean, they basically busted by about 5 to 7 degrees. So this is really cold air that's kind of wedged down. And I'm going to be very curious to see how important that cold air is when this low makes its track across the Gulf Coast states, right along the immediate coast, and how this all plays out. But the Weather Service is going, you know, in the purple and pinkish areas. I mean, that's where you start to get into the amounts that go from 6 to 10 inches. They got a few double-digit amounts in and around Little Rock, Arkansas, northern Mississippi. There's a zone of about 4 to 5. In northern Alabama, they have a zone of about 3 to 4. They have a zone of about 4 to 5 in North Georgia, 5 to 6 in southwestern North Carolina. Most of Tennessee is in a range of about 4 to 6, with the exception of parts of eastern Tennessee where there's some mountain issues with regards to shadows that occur. because of the wind direction. We have 4-inch amounts in general across southern Missouri into into southern Kentucky, even an area of 5 to 6. We're still getting snows and some heavy snows, by the way, going on because of this northerly flow. They've been getting snow every day this week so far in the mountains of southwestern Pennsylvania down through West Virginia, eastern West Virginia. So it's been this blocking pattern has really, um, been such a dominating force. Now, eventually, when the load comes out, it's probably going to produce 2 to 4, 3 to 5 in the rest of western and northern North Carolina, and maybe even a coating to an inch down to I-95 in North Carolina as you get closer to the coast. Southeast Virginia into the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula, you're looking at 2, 3, 4 inches, maybe an odd a higher amount here and there. And then, of course, as the low moves off the North Carolina coast and heads out to sea, the amounts really tail off once you get into northern Delaware, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, north and east into eastern Pennsylvania, New York State, and Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and southern New England. You know, you got this low going out, you got this upper trough that's going to be swinging eastward at the same time. So, you're really talking about maybe a coating to okay, somebody gets an inch out of this. I mean, that's maximum, and it wouldn't surprise me, Joe, if you get a lot of spots that wind up with little or nothing from this across eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England.
Yeah, well, we have been talking about the fact that as we get closer, the models will start getting on the same page. And it looks like pretty much they have gotten on the same page now, keeping both the northern and southern stream systems separate, not teleconnecting, which would be a completely different matter altogether. If they did, then we would have the potential for a major storm. But so long as they remain independent of each other, separated from each other, it doesn't really appear like we're going to see all that much up here in the immediate New York metropolitan area. I said on Facebook that my first guess would be maybe about an inch of snow. Could be a little less, could be a little more. We'll have a better handle on that, obviously, tomorrow and on Friday. That's a relatively short duration storm from after midnight Friday night into the first half of the day on Saturday. And it's pretty well over with by Saturday afternoon, whatever we do get. And one of the people on the chat board, Bobby Livingsworth, is asking, he's asked this now question more than once on the chat board, why does Joe Rayo stop making snow maps? Well, Bobby Livingsworth, if you have taken note, so far, for example, Central Park has had maybe, to date, 4 inches of snow. They've had several storm or snow possibilities, and they've gotten a grand total of 4 inches or so out of that. I myself here in Putnam Valley, which normally would have a significant amount of snow by this time of the winter season, I've only had about 7 inches of snow. So we've had several storms. We've had that much snow total out of them. Why would I bother making a snow map when I can just very easily say in a sentence, as I'm saying right now, for Saturday or Friday night, Saturday morning, maybe you'll get it out an inch or so.
You can't draw a map for a coating for you can't draw a map for a coating to an inch.
Yeah,
what are you going to draw? It's a coating to an inch.
It's not worth it. It's not worth the time and energy. Now, this has been popping up on Facebook memories. I've been seeing over the last several years snow maps that I have, put together on this date or in previous years or whatever, showing 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 12 inches. We've had nothing like that so far.
Yeah.
Nothing. Now, if I were living not in the lower Hudson Valley, but if I were living in South Jersey or Washington or Delaware or whatever, sure, I would have had a snow map up. I probably would have had a couple and may even be preparing one for this coming Friday night. But so far, there really is no use to do that because all I need to do is say, well, maybe we'll have an inch or so. A coating to an inch or two. It's not worth doing a snow map, Bobby. I know it really is driving you crazy that I haven't done a snow map yet, but that's the way it goes. Maybe you'll get lucky later this month, or maybe in February or March. In fact, I would probably say that we probably will have more than our fair share of chances in February and March. Um, you look at last year, we had a huge snowstorm in parts of upstate New York and New England. They were crying for snow. Oh, we have no snow. It's been a terrible winter. And all of a sudden, ba-boom, within a matter of 10 days, it was the 10 days before the solar eclipse, they had not one but two storms that dumped like 1 to 2 feet of snow. You never know in this situation when you're going to get it. But, there's a chance, I think, that we're eventually going to get it here in the tri-state area, not in the immediate future, but sometime down the road. So, as the great humorist Gene Shepard, when he had a great show on WR radio late at night, he used to tell people, he used to tell his friends, hold your water with this. You'll get it. You'll get your snow eventually.
All right, let's. I'm going to go take a look at. This is a point now where we're inside 48 hours, and I think you could, you could use these snow maps because they just basically map up with the amount of precipitation that the models are generating for various areas. And this is the 18Z GFS, which is showing some 8 to 10 inch amounts in Arkansas. And also in northern Mississippi, we're seeing some 6 to 10 inch amounts there, some 5 to 7 across much of northern Alabama, and then they go down to about 3 or 4 in northern Georgia, and then it sort of tails off once you get south of Atlanta as you go further to the south. So that's the world of the squirrel model, which is now what I call the GFS, because if we're gonna go down, I just saw somebody earlier was talking about the European in the long range showing something for 300 hours out or whatever it was. And I just had to shake my head and said, "You've got to be kidding me. Are you ready to go down that particular rabbit hole?" And certainly when the GFS pops up a big storm in the long range, which it really didn't do today, um, I guarantee you that the same people are going to start posting those GFS maps once again. In your mind, folks, you should be looking at those maps and ignoring them until we get inside the short range. Look how this storm has turned out to be with regards to how the models. Even the European had a deep low at a couple of runs off the New Jersey coast. Not happening. So there you go. Um, I think these numbers, I mean, you certainly could make arguments that the GFS is tending to be, in Georgia, for example, is tending to be a bit more on the low end. If we look at the European, which I'm rooting for, the European snow amounts have actually been going up. And I think the reason why they've been going up is because I think the European is doing a little bit of a better job in picking up on the wedging of the cold air into the south and pushing down into northern Alabama and northern Georgia. So the Europeans got 5 to 6 inch amounts across northern Georgia, and the 6 to 8 inch amounts in northern Alabama, and about the same into Mississippi. And it's also showing some of the bigger numbers back through Arkansas. So I'm kind of looking at this and saying, you know what? I'm seeing colder air here. And also, I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm going to bring up the sounding, Joe, for me. So this is, again, we're looking at the European run, but I want to pull up a sounding for um, Friday morning. Let me see what time frame this is. So that's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is at 10 o'clock in the morning. So the European actually has it starting to snow here in North Georgia, and I'm going to put up a um, a sounding for near my house, which I bet 2,200 feet. If the European is right on this sounding, Joe, I'm going to be snowing here with a temperature of 13. Okay,
Ouch.
so that will be interesting. If that, I mean, at the very least, it's interesting, if not fascinating, to see a sounding that cold. In fact, I'll just go a little tighter and take a look here again. We'll look at
Yes.
Georgia.
I
Go
don't,
ahead.
again, I don't, I got to ask you, I don't mean to interrupt. Do you have a snowblower?
No, I do not have a snowblower.
Snow shovel.
No, I do not have a snow shovel. My plan is to just let it accumulate and melt. That is my plan.
We may never hear from you again until
You
next
may
week.
not. All right, so at 1 o'clock, so this is at 1 p.m. Now, most of the snow that they're indicating here is light. Atlanta, by the European, says they should have about an inch and a third by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And on the sounding, Joe, in Atlanta, the temperature there at 27, but all the levels are below freezing as you go up. Here in North Georgia, uh, I'm trying to get the cursor here as close to my latitude and longitude. That's close enough. At 1 o'clock, it has a temperature here at my house of in the afternoon now of 13. Okay. Now by 7 o'clock, let's roll to 7 p.m. So this is at 4 p.m., 7 p.m. At which point the European has 3.1 inches in Atlanta. That ought to be a gem at the evening rush. And at this stage, it's got a ground temperature of 32, but you can see if you look up and follow these red and green lines, it is the temperature at the 850, just above the 850 levels, goes above freezing. So you got to think here it's probably either sleet and freezing rain at that point in Atlanta. For me, I'm approaching 4 inches according to this, roughly. And my temperature, which was 13 at 1 o'clock, jumps 14 degrees to 27. But
Wow.
I'm still below critical at all levels. And anyway, it's just I'm this has been a really interesting learning experience, being that this is the first time that I'm seeing something like this since I've been here. So I've been paying extra attention. When it's all said and done, this area in white that's up here, this sort of bluish white here, this is where I am. You can see the North Carolina state line just to my north by about maybe 12 or 13 miles uh, from how the crow flies. So that's got me in a zone of 6 inches. I'll be very happy if I get half that. But if the European's been going up with every run, I'm happy if, it'll be even happier if we wind up with six. I'm going to make Jess Harden happy because he's been going like this for weeks. This is what he does, this is his thing all winter long. So here are your winter numbers, your numbers here on the European tonight. This is the 18Z run, 3.3 at Birmingham. And by the way, it's higher than the 12Z. It's not like it's, enormously higher. It's, maybe a half inch to an inch higher. Birmingham 3.3, Tuscaloosa 2.1. Then you head up toward Gadsden, it's got 4.9, Huntsville at 6.7, and Florence 7.4. In Mississippi, Tupelo 7.9, Greenville, Mississippi 7.8. Another city I want to look at too is Memphis and Nashville. So we'll take a look at them. Nashville 4.1. Memphis is, well, they have Bartlett, which is probably not that far from Memphis, but that whole area in Western Tennessee near the Arkansas state line is in a zone of about 4 to 6 or 5 to 6. So there you go. And you can see the amounts do lessen up as you go to Nashville's 4.3, Bowling Green is 3.2, Evansville 3.1, Louisville another 3 inches on top of what they got back over the weekend. So it's been, this is the zone this winter so far. Every winter there's a zone. And this winter, it seems to be in the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the southern part of the Mid Atlantic, or maybe you'll go a little bit northern than that. Let's just say in general the Mid Atlantic. And now this is pushing down deeper into the southeast. So and I'm waiting also right now. We've got the new HRRR model, which goes out 48 hours. So this will take us to Friday evening, and oh, we have it out already. So let's change the geography here. So while we're on it on the HRRR, since I got the map up already, again this is through 7 o'clock on no, this is actually, I'm sorry, That's the 18Z. I want the 0Z. The 0Z is not out far enough yet, so we'll come back to it and we'll monitor. And here's what it looks like on the surface map on the GFS, and you can see there's a low that's going to be developing tonight and Thursday in the Western Gulf along the Texas coast. And then it moves pretty much straight east because the cold air is just pressing down through the Ohio Valley and into the Tennessee Valley. And you also see that purple and that purplish area, and that's sleet and maybe some freezing rain. And then the low starts to go northeast, but it comes right off the eastern coast of North Carolina. And then instead of coming up the coast, because there's no room, thanks to the block, it gets shoved out east or east northeast. And this is not, if you're thinking there's going to be a last minute shift to the northwest, I highly doubt it. With this big block out there, it's going to be very, very difficult for this system to do anything except go out to the east or east northeast. And the only thing that saves the north, that gives you a little bit of snow, is the fact that there's a weak front and upper trough from a low that's up in Canada there, that's swinging eastward and may take advantage of some of the limited moisture there is and trigger off some snow showers as we late Friday night into early Saturday afternoon.
Well, to go along with the problems that Miss Spallerite has been going through, she wants to get out of there and head to warmer climes at the beginning of this weekend. But it appears that her local municipality has not done much in the way of shoveling or digging her out as of yet. Going hand in hand with that, Renata's cousin, Maria Hutchinson, she's on the chat board as Mrs. Hutch 53. She lives in Rush, Kentucky, Joe, and she says nothing has melted. Never get out of the 20s today. Her car is still iced up. Snow plows have only come by twice in the last 2 days, and we haven't had any mail since last Saturday. Well, guess what? Even if they cleared everything away, you're not going to have any mail tomorrow because tomorrow is the National Day of Mourning for Jimmy Carter. So it's, in a sense, is a federal holiday. But that having been said, it doesn't look like you're going to be seeing very much in the way of melting in Kentucky. And this next system, I think, coming up from the south, will clip you. We'll get a little bit more wintry precipitation. So you're kind of right, Joe. In some years, some areas of the country just get targeted more than others, and it looks like indeed in parts of the Central Plains, the Ohio Valley, and now down in the southeast, that seems to be the target zone. And meanwhile, up here in the northeast, we're kind of like on the sidelines, getting not all that much to write home about, except of course for those who live down lee of the Great Lakes. They've certainly had more than their fair share in places like Buffalo and Watertown or near Lake Michigan. Lake effect people have had quite a bit of snow, but up in the Northeast, really hasn't been much to write home about yet.
And looking long range for this week, by the way, you can see on the ensembles here, from back on Monday, the upper low over Newfoundland just spinning away, troughs rotating around it, just getting reinforced. It slides out a little bit to the east, but the trough that's coming through, you'll notice the massive positive tilt here that goes from, let me clean this up. There you go. So, I mean, you got this. This block is just there. You needed to get at least some short-term ridging in between the two to allow for some room for something to climb, and it just didn't happen. And as a result, you're just getting all that southern energy is just getting stretched out and pushed out underneath. It never really phases with that northern upper low that's in Hudson Bay. Another trough drops down behind it, going through this week, and then that gradually starts to lift up uh, toward next weekend. Only there's still more troughing that's coming down into the eastern part of the United States. So, I mean, right now, I don't see any. There are some systems in there in the longer term time frame that may have some potential down the road, but you're going to have a lot of things go right. And in the meantime, if we go just back on the GFS on this particular run, uh, which it's you could take it for what it's worth. In fact, let's just look at the European. I think that's probably a better choice. We'll just look at the 12Z European, and I think we also need to remember that the European seems to have a hot hand here with things in the last few weeks. So we're probably going to want to pay attention to this more than the other ones. And this is our system for tonight. I'm sorry, for tomorrow night and Friday and into early Saturday, and that goes out. You see there's snow up in the northern plains and northern Rockies. A little diver comes down, starts to move eastward, goes to the Great Lakes, eventually pushes a cold front around Tuesday, late Tuesday, and it turns very cold for the middle part of next week. And by the way, notice again the isobars here that run basically from Maine all the way down to the Bahamas. So there's blockiness out in the Atlantic again. So the wind is coming back, maybe for mid and late week next week. It hasn't even left this week yet. And you still have these systems and troughs that's dropping into the eastern United States. There's not much to work with. After day 10, the European hints at something coming out of the Gulf states and running off the Carolinas and going east and kind of grazing the Northeast with some snow. I don't know. Who knows if that's real? And then another shot of very cold air comes in behind that. And then you see another system in the southern stream that goes out. So obviously, anything after day 7 in the terms of specifics, you might as well you could make up a map and draw it yourself. Okay, and it has every bit of it. It has just as much a chance of being right as any of the solutions that are produced by the models on their surface maps in terms of specificity. So, in some ways, we know what the pattern is going to be. In general, it's going to be cold and dry, but in terms of specifics, no way to know. And try not to go down the rabbit holes that the models are going to take you down in the coming days and weeks with major storms in the long range that 99.99% of the time never happen.
Yeah, the European was, for example, suggesting that we were going to have a major snowstorm on Inauguration Day, especially down in the Washington, D.C. area, a la the Kennedy snowstorm of 1961. But that's, what are we talking about? We're talking about more than 12 days away. So, you just know what will happen when we ultimately get to the 20th. It's going to be probably anything but a major snowstorm.
Do you have Briller Jeopardy? Because I don't have one.
I don't think I've
I know
seen anything.
Scott's on vacation and he's taking care of his mom. So, all right. Well, when he's back from vacation, I'm sure he's going to send us one. We miss him terribly. Just want to say hi to Scott and his mom. God bless, and get better. If get better. Uh,
Absolutely.
I'm trying to
And
think if there was anything else I had on my head about.
well, yesterday Chris Cimino posted something interesting on Facebook, and if you give me a talk for about 30 seconds, and I'll be able to pull it up
I won't.
because
I'm not saying. I'm all out of. I've ran through my word limit tonight, Joe. I'm just not going to do it. I did turn the share button on for you so that you can, you know, graciously share whatever it is you're going to share.
well, I'm
But
here visually, but I want to read this. This is yesterday from Chris Cimino's Facebook page. He said 29 years ago today or yesterday, I was in my first few days of work at WNBC Channel 4 in New York, and we were slammed by an epic blizzard. He's talking about the blizzard of '96 that shut down the tri state area for days. Over 20 inches of snow piled up in New York City, but areas of New Jersey and other suburbs approached nearly 3 feet. This was 29 years ago. Strong winds created drifts of 6 to 8 feet in some coastal communities. To this day, it is still my favorite snowstorm for many reasons. While we have plenty of cold and wind right now, the likes of a snowstorm of this magnitude is not in the cards. We could see some snow, however, this weekend. Still unclear. Well, now it's more clear, Chris, 24 hours later after you posted this. But he posted this, and a lot of people, talking about their memories of the blizzard of '96, and I know you have your own fair share of memories from that, Joe. But then
Oh, I do. I have a few stories about that. Yeah.
all right, but here's what I posted on Chris' Facebook page. I said, I remember this storm as, quote, the Mary Tyler Moore storm. And the reason is that Carolyn Gussoff, and you and I worked with Carolyn at News 12 Long Island.
Yes.
Carolyn was now at CBS 2, 29 years ago during this blizzard, was working at NBC4. And right in the middle of the blizzard, the NBC4 assignment desk got an angry phone call from none other than Mary Richards herself, Mary Tyler Moore. And it seems like as she was watching coverage, TV coverage of the blizzard, Moore became enraged at Carolyn Gussoff because while doing a stand up in the heavy snows and roaring wind, Carolyn was wearing a winter coat with a fur collar. So, in the midst of one of the worst winter storms in recent memory, the news director had her trudge back to 30 Rock, where Gus, which what we called Carolyn, nickname was Gus. He said she had to explain to the news director that the fur collar that she was wearing was fake. And that's what pissed off Mary Tyler Moore, was that she thought it was a fur from an animal, and that, oh, how could she possibly wear something like that? And meanwhile, I assume that the powers that be called Mary Tyler Moore back to explain. And I
Can you
guess
believe that? Yeah, I know. It's
Mary Tyler Moore had nothing better to do during a occasional snowstorm than to call TV stations and complain about the attire that some of the reporters were wearing. And I said, you remember this, Chris? You remember this? I haven't gotten a response yet from that, but I remember it. And I just shook my head and couldn't believe it, that this is
well,
what Tyler Moore had to complain about during, again, one of the greatest and most potent and most memorable snowstorms in memory, about what somebody was wearing while they were covering this powerful storm.
well, as you can see, one of the beauties and advantages of working on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is the fact that we don't care what we wear, and I think that shows. Considering I think I've been in this shirt now for no, did I wear this? No, this I did not wear yesterday, or did I? I don't know. I may have,
We're
but
not a,
I did do laundry.
I wear a sweater more than a day, or if I wear a shirt. How many days in a row have you worn that? What are you doing? Why
I
did
don't
you
even
throw
want
that?
to. You don't want to even tell her how many days in a row I wear the same jeans.
Exactly.
Yeah, guys just don't care about that sort of stuff. They just don't. Funny thing is, I mean, I'm not a. I have bought. Well, if you're a wait, if you're a 36 or a 38 waist with a 34 length, it's almost impossible to find pants that size for guys. And the reason is that mo a lot of guys are 36 or 38 waist with a 34 length. It's basically, the average height of a guy is 5'11" or 6 foot, and the average waist is about 36 or 38. And so they disappear. So I happened to find jeans. So I bought five pair of jeans. These are Walmart jeans. They're $16 a piece, and they're incredibly comfortable. They really are. And you can wear the 36 on these, which is even better. I haven't worn a 36 since, well, I don't even want to say. But the thing is, uh, those five jeans, that's the most I have bought in clothing in, I don't know, 10 years. I just don't buy clothes. Um, so actually, by the way, I did get this just in. I've got a Briller Jeopardy. Scott just sent one. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. I got to switch back to my Facebook, my personal page in order to see it. Um, uh, okay, so here we go. You ready, everybody, for Briller Jeopardy? By the way, David Fuller hit Super Chat tonight. Thank you, David, for hitting the tip jar. Okay, so we're going to do average snowfall, annual snowfalls for cities again, and we're going to start tonight with Philadelphia.
I would say for Philly, I'd say 23.
Ring the bell for yourself, Joe. 23 it is.
Next,
Providence, Rhode Island. Okay, folks, we're
Providence.
on to Providence, Rhode Island.
Providence, I'll say 35.
Oh, God, that is so close. So close for Providence. Um,
I'm
Rich
assuming this.
Rich Rothmansky and Frank R get it at 36. You missed by
Okay,
one.
sorry. I was assuming that was for TF Green Airport in Providence. So,
Annual snowfall for Rochester, New York.
um, how about 79?
Way too low. Way too low at 79.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Some people.
Jason
Some people.
Fox gets it at 102. 102.
102. You're
102.
wow.
Not this
That's more.
year, but their average is 102. St. Louis.
That was more than Buffalo. I would have thought Buffalo would have had more than Rochester.
Yeah, not
All right.
Buffalo's got it's a lot, but they got wind direction issues there is a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, St. Louis.
St. Louis. Um, I don't know. 18.
Very close. Steve Lapointe, Patrick Darcy on the nose at 17.
Hey,
And lastly, Washington. Well, before the bonus, five is the next one's Washington, D.C.
Washington. I would say 14.
Okay, now you can ring the bell for yourself.
Thank you.
And the bonus is Dover, Delaware.
Dover, Delaware. 22.
No, not that high. Um, boat anchor. Boat anchor at 15 gets it. Boat anchor is new on the chat board, so we welcome you to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast chat board. And I think I told you, Richard Bond. Yes, I really am excited about tomorrow. So, and so are all of my friends. That they're all
I'm looking
excited
forward to
about the snowfall.
Schwartzmansky in the flesh.
Yes, and Rich Rothmansky will be with us here tomorrow night. He's going to tell us how he takes obs at Kennedy, among other
All right.
things.
Okay.
All right. All right, let's wrap it up tonight. It's coming up on WCBS News Time is almost 8:30. So we will be back tomorrow night at our usual time, 7:35 p.m. Eastern. We will have a Friday night show at 7:35 p.m. Eastern. So mark it down, and we'll see you guys. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Good night.
Night.